All right, everyone. How you doing? Welcome back to Stu and the Nun, episode 33 Deuce 332. And as you see, my man with the plan, the Nun himself, the long-haired, sexy gringo from Cabo, is joining me tonight. Hey, Toby, how you doing, buddy?
Long-haired hippie people, that's
With
what I was hearing in my head. When you were talking about it, I was like the signs everywhere, signs.
Yep,
I heard that in my head.
there you
Sorry,
go.
I'm not a good singer. Everyone knows that.
Well, you've got
It's
this
good to be here.
computerized voice thing going on. It's going in and out, and I apologize to everybody because it was happening before we started the show, and it just seems to be the internet and in the IT world they would call that packet sniffing. I think they're sniffing your packets as they come across the World Wide Web and making sure that you're doing everything right.
Well, like my packets sniffing.
Yeah. Speaking of sniffing, how's that puppy dog?
Dude, he is he's on his couch taking a nap.
His couch.
He has long days, man. It's his couch. I recently changed locations, moved, as some would say, within the town of Cabo.
I keep seeing you keep
And
getting the bigger and bigger apartments. You started out in like a closet safe house, and and you worked your way
yeah,
up.
my very first place was about the size of my kitchen.
Yeah,
Uh, I I'm actually in a not as big as place as I was just at, but a better layout and a better location. And but the most important thing to move was Santiago's couch. It
yeah.
wasn't like the kitchen supplies. It wasn't like my wardrobe. It wasn't like that. No, Santiago had to have his couch, uh, specifically his Shea Lounge.
Mm.
But
That dog has
he's
moved up way up in the
he's
world
an
like the Jeffersons since he was a stray on the porch of the porch.
yeah he's an uppity Mexican street dog.
Oh, he got his
Uh,
nose up in the air.
no, he's just spoiled, and he's enjoying he's I mean the dude has a good life and he deserves it. He had a hard upbringing, and it's just an absolute joy to have him around. He's one of the best fishing buddies I've ever had. Dogs are special to us, right? You just got a new one.
Yeah.
That dog is I don't know what the word for adorable is. That doesn't sound like adorable, but he is like that's a cool dog. That's a cool looking dog. It's gonna be
Oh,
big though.
yeah. She is. She is. It's our first
She's gonna
female.
be she's gonna
Yeah.
be a monster. She's gonna be
She is
huge.
the biggest one of the litter. She's got some big old paws. I'll send you some pictures later. Yeah, but she was the most calm, at least when she was at the breeders. But now
Yeah,
she's kind of getting the run of the land, and like this is her house, and she's being a puppy. But yeah, she is.
yeah,
It's our first female we ever had. So kept with the same breed, Old English Bulldog, and it just kind of got where it was time, and we miss that. We're empty
yeah,
nesters, right? So
yeah.
we're not going
Uh,
to bring another kid in the world. We can bring it. We can bring a dog to the house before we bring another kid in the world.
yeah,
So
no, like the grandkids, they come and then they leave, right? And then
yes,
the dog is permanent. The no, we're very much the same, and the dogs are a big part of the family. We got a couple in Texas, and then obviously we got Santiago here. Santiago is a little unique though because everyone else understands that they're a dog. I don't think he does. Like, the way he
he
talks
thinks
to
he's on.
people,
He thinks he's on par with all the two-legged dogs.
yeah, no, he like the way he talks to people and like the facial expressions and he is an absolute. I he, the dog has character. Like he has character that I didn't know and personality that I didn't know like dogs could actually have. He's like a cartoon character, but anyway.
Yeah.
We're
you
not
put
here
up
to we're not
today,
here to
and with the
talk about
picture,
our dogs.
we could do an hour on dogs, but yeah, the picture you put up today
We could.
was awesome. It was the picture you put up today was precious, not only of him, but man, of you, that hair. It was like Fabio is coming back. I mean, I think about my bald brother hanging out with me in DC many years ago, shaved head,
Yeah.
buzz cut. I mean, he had the goatee, sporting a red shirts and I think that was like 2011 or something like that. And now I look at you and I'm like,
it was 2010, 2011.
I mean, I have a shaved head because I'm not going to have what you got. If I did, I'd be having locks, dude. I would look like Jesus walking through the door.
Where Kevin Costner in Waterworld. That's what I tell Jessica I'm always going for. No, I got a little nostalgic watching the intro. I know we talk about it every time because I'm only on like 5 times a year or less. But no, one I got nostalgic because there's people in that are no longer with us, right? So it always kind of reminds you like, hey, there's people that aren't here anymore. But the other thing is you look the same, right? So there's a picture of you and Ace. The only difference is, your mustache was thicker and you didn't have anything here. But other than that, you look the same. And I look at me through this, like, it's about 15 years, right? So, like, this period of time that we have these pictures, that collage of pictures, it's almost 15 years, right? We're about to have our quinceañera. And,
ooh.
Yeah, that's right. That should be a big
Those
party,
are nice
right?
parties. Yeah. I think I need to come to Cabo for that.
Oh no, that's definitely a Mexican party. But I've changed. Like physically, my appearance has changed.
I've got some more gray. I'll call it. I got more gray in the beard for sure.
So like we've definitely, both of us, like going through the photos, we both, I think, look fuller of life, like happier, more
experienced.
You're fairly consistent in your overall like aesthetic, and I'm like all
I know.
over
I
the
just
planet,
can't drop the weight.
Unbearded. That's an ongoing lifestyle. That's an ongoing lifestyle. But no, like you look good, man. And,
thank you, man. Thank you. I'm jealous of the hair.
Well, like it's receding, and I'm like, I'm arguing with time as well. But in the meantime, like, why not?
That's it.
And then I can just cut it off.
It has been a while. I remember when I went back and looked for those pictures, man. It was just, we didn't have a ton, but we had some. We just, a lot of places we've been together. We didn't bring out cameras. We knew better. We're like, nope, no pictures. We're gonna save this in our heads and not online. And it was better kept that way. So
no, like there's a couple things I'd love to touch on, and one of the things I want to touch on is maturity. And I want to touch on it because of a conversation that we kind of loosely had in a group text earlier this week, actually. I forget to look at a calendar and realize that the peak of my military was 20 years ago. Now, that wasn't the end of my military, but I would say like that was my peak, man. That's when I was like firing on all cylinders, running and gunning.
platoon daddy,
top of my game, just and just drinking every ounce of the Kool-Aid. Like I was reading every book I could read. I was learning everything I could. I was just focused. And that was 20 years ago. And I think in my head that because I was at my best professional performance level that I was at my best personal, emotional level. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I was a snot-nosed, ragamuffin, punk-ass, financially illiterate, shithead of a guy. And, and then I looked at follow-on interviews, like especially 3 or 4 years later, whatever it was, Bad War. So that was 16 years ago, or whatever that was. And you felt like you're the most mature person in the room because the life experience you had was exponentially more than a lot of people around you just seeing and witnessed. But the conversation we were kind of loosely had the other day was someone found in one of our chats, someone found an old clip of an interview from Medal of Honor recipient Dakota Meyer. Dakota Meyer was a Marine that was one of three people awarded the Medal of Honor sailing in battle. He was the very first Marine Corps recipient and of the War on Terror. Let me find that.
Yeah, you're just so you know, your connection, your audio has gotten really, really worse. Just so you know, I don't know why. I know we were playing with it earlier. I mean, I can hear what you're saying, but it's definitely gotten exponentially worse.
Yeah, I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah,
I microphone.
You could try that or any of the settings. I don't know what could be doing it. I don't know if there's anything if there's anything on your laptop that you could shut down. But no, I'm going to kind of build on what Toby was saying. I know where he's going on that clip. I mean, I think it's interesting. I wasn't sure what Toby and I were going to talk about. Can you hear me, Toby?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
That's freaking solid. I think they were jamming your Bluetooth. Oh my Lord, you're in 5x5 right now. I'll let you keep going.
Perfect. Awesome. Sorry about that.
Yeah, run with it.
Yeah, no, so this old clip of Dakota Myers surfaced, or someone surfaced it, and our very judgmental, old group.
You see me start laughing, right?
There is no shortage of chirps, and people kind of they dogged on Dakota, and I got to tell you, when I was younger, and the first time I kind of met him, I was not impressed. And what I mean by not impressed is he just carried himself differently than what I, in my mind, felt he should be carrying himself like. Never once putting myself into his shoes. In fact, I think one of the coolest things, I did a bike ride years and years ago. And you probably remember these rides. Chuck and I did them, and a couple other guys did them. Sal Gunta. Yeah. So Sal rode on one of these rides, and him and I got side by side for probably a 4 or 5 mile stretch one time, and we were taking turns pushing this group, and him and I got talking, and someone in our little pack was made a comment about him having the Medal of Honor, and I just remember him just looking down at his handlebars, shaking his head, and going yeah, great, let's bring that up, and then him making the comment about yeah, y'all think this is cool, but you forget that that's the worst day of my life, and it cost me my best friend.
Yeah,
I wasn't being a hero, I wasn't being anything like that. I was just doing my job and being a brother. I was pulling my weight. I was just like everybody else in that formation. I was just pulling my weight. And, he was basically cursing the Army. And again, put this in perspective. When I say cursing the Army, he was expressing his frustrations with now the Army was making him do these things that he did not want to do. And then we see Dave, right? We see Bells.
Right.
And Bells goes to this thing. You realize for a period of time, you don't belong to yourself again. You thought you were done and you thought you were free, and you kind of
And
get stuck.
his period of time went a very long time.
Yeah, and you get sucked back in, and well, that's because
Yeah,
he gave the best speech ever, and they knew what they
yeah.
had. They had like, and by watching the Pacific, for our Marine brothers out there, I think the Pacific is a beautifully well done collection of books brought to the screen. I think it's
Yeah.
amazing, and you see, John Bastion, like you see him having to do these war bond tours, and and he becomes an alcoholic, and he like, and it, and you, it's like, oh, okay, that's a real thing, and so the
It
maturity
happened with
that,
the guys from Iwo Jima.
yeah,
It
yeah,
happened
like
with that
you're,
with
you're
them.
gonna go on this tour, right?
Right.
And
And they essentially were whored out. I mean, they were
yeah,
instantly, and I can tell you, and I mean, it would be up to Bell's to ever talk about it himself, but I mean, I've had enough conversations with him to know, it wore him down too, even though he was doing it and he was talking to, and he was credited with a high number of the Army enlistments that happened, especially ones that came from other branches that thought they were going to enlist somewhere else. He was personally credited with a lot of, because he would just go talk to these groups of ROTC, junior ROTC, scout groups, whatever, right? College kids. But it still wore him down because there's this burden put on your back that you feel like, whether you're getting paid or not, that you owe it. And he loves the Army and he wanted to give back to them. But man, they just, like a pimp daddy, they just put your ass back out on the street every single time you're done working one gig. You're back out there doing another. They don't care about your ability to rest or recuperate or have a life.
no, and like in Bell's situation, Bell's is a classically trained, wordsmith.
Yeah,
He's a writer. He's a playwright. He's a man of stage. He's a man of microphone. He's a man of politics. And so, like, he had a skill set pre-existing that served him very well and serves him very well and gives him the ability to like manage this a lot better than say like a Sal or a Dakota. And in
right.
Dakota's case, like, and again, don't really know the guy, and I'm not, speaking on his behalf, but man, like you become quasi famous, like
Overnight.
you're a pseudo celebrity overnight, and you're being celebritized for a good thing, for a positive thing.
But
For the
like Sal said, from
for
a
you,
moment, yeah.
the worst day of your life. And with the attention he got, like guy gets hit on by an Alaskan smoke show. He's like, and then that Alaskan
Talking
smoke show.
about Dakota, just so we're clear, just talking
Yeah,
about Dakota.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so he gets, hit on and gets involved with Bristol Palin, the daughter of Sarah Palin. And, now here's a family that understand celebrity life, right? And they understand the public eye and he's a newbie to it. And now he's getting, pimped out by the Marine Corps and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. He's getting pimped out by his future mother-in-law to become mother-in-law. And because he's got, some dreams and aspirations, it's being manipulated, it's being leveraged. And, like you find yourself like, I can't imagine you or I, like on the set of a reality TV show. Now, you and I have both, been involved in different forms of production.
Right.
Like,
I mean, if there was one made about us, it would be a great show for probably a season.
yes,
But it would be a hell of a show
we
if we
might
had
not,
one.
because we'll probably like by episode 8, you and I'd be so deep in the paint screwing shit up. But
It would take Chuck to get us out, and that's scary.
Yeah.
Chuck would be our moral barometer.
Yeah, I shouldn't say that because like anyway, I probably have something on the horizon that involves this, so I should probably watch what I say. But no, I can't imagine, being wound tight. Because when you and I first started hanging out, man, we were all wound tight. Jimbo was
Yeah.
wound tight. You were wound tight. I was wound tight.
Maddie B, we had
Patty,
Nick, we had
like
Tommy.
everyone was
Yes.
wound tight. Oh shit,
Right.
Tommy was back
I
then.
throw
Was
some
like,
names out, man. We could.
Tommy was
Yeah.
like Chef from freaking Apocalypse.
Yeah.
That dude was wound tight. But no, like everyone was wound tight. Like, and you think you have that maturity, and so it was just really interesting because now we're like the graybeards, right? We're the old men at regiment, kind of sitting back, and we're the Jedi Council. Is we like sit there and pass our judgment on. And I was like, man, 20 years have passed. 20 years have passed since I was what I thought like the top of my game. And I had no emotional understanding of where I am today back then. And I couldn't be a good dad back then. In fact, I wasn't. I chose the army, and my mistress was the war on terror.
Right.
It wasn't my family. I was a shitty dad. Like, like I made it all the wrong decisions for the good cause, right? But I didn't have
That's what we
any
thought was
kind
important at the time. I mean,
yeah,
keep it
I
in
didn't have the
perspective.
right margins.
Right.
I didn't put the right margin in my life. I didn't do all that stuff.
Right.
And so like it is cool to see like how we've matured. And and I'm glad that you and I aren't being held to that 20-year-old standard, because like we're still waiting on Chuck to mature.
We're still waiting on immature, but that's okay. But yeah, I mean, just to put it in
Everybody
perspective,
else, it's like, yeah,
20 years ago, we were 3 years past 9/11. And as you know, I was at the time New York National Guard, which means my life had been upended for the last 3 years, right? And then we just went into Iraq, and I was this 20 years ago. Right now, I was on an up and down roller coaster. My company, we were going, we're not going to go, we're going to go, we're not going to go. And then later on this year would be the 20 years of when the guys went, and it's just. It's just amazing to think that. I mean, I can't imagine that. I was a first sergeant, had an infantry company, doing my thing, working my civilian job, kept getting deployed to New York City every time somebody farted wrong and went to code level red. That's when we had code level red. DHS had just gotten created. I mean, we thought, it was the balloon was up nonstop for the last 3 years, right? The balloon was just hanging out up there. We were nonstop going. Everyone's waiting for their turn. Everyone's like, okay, the first guys are in, second ones are in. When's my turn coming, right? Everyone was just waiting for their turn. Yeah, to look back now, 20 years later, and see how all that turned out, or sadly didn't turn out, and on how both of those wars ended. Yeah, well, hindsight's 2020, brother, and perspective. And you look back, go, I shoulda, woulda, coulda. But at the time, we only live in our world, right? Think about I was talking to someone about this recently. Think about, you can understand this, and anyone watching or listening who's deployed in the war on terror, or any war probably can understand, but the war on terror, where we were a lot of times we're left out there hanging. I mean, I look back to when I was in Afghanistan, and there were times where in my younger military career, I never would have done operations like that, or let my unit or anyone do things that we did, because they were tactically unsafe and unsound. But when you're out there embedded with, you were with the Iraqi army for a while, you were doing stuff there, you're out there flapping in the breeze where you got like one other American or two next to you if you're lucky, and you're out there running and gunning in Indian country. You would not, there's no way as a young E5, E6, E corporal you would have ever done that, or your leadership would have let you done that, yet we were thrown into that.
No, like you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. The interesting and unique time. Like I wish I, like Rod Stewart, sings, I wish I knew then what I know now, right? But I love seeing my soldiers, our soldiers, the guys. I love seeing them 20 years later, as great dads, uh, as business, men, as these things, and
As
it can,
retirees themselves, as,
yeah,
as,
as
as
retirees too.
retired
Like
sergeant majors, and
that one
yeah,
hurt. That one hurt. A couple of my guys retired out as CSMs, and I was like, man, ballers. They like, they ballers. I was so proud, but it hurt too because I was like, man, maybe I should have gone a little bit more. But to kind of like go back to Dakota real fast, when people play these clips and they do this stuff, like I imagine there's some things in Bad Voodoo's War and like the man, I can't even remember what was that book that you and I both contributed to, The Sandbox,
right.
like stuff like that, like uh,
Bad Booty you wore of you sitting inside your vehicle with like your camera and a little red lens flashlight, talking to the camera with your
like,
slick young head and
yeah,
tender young baby skin. Yeah.
supple. The no, like you know, that's a definitely a big part of who I became.
But those were snapshots in time. And I
But
think that's where you're going with the Dakota thing. It's a
it is,
snapshot in time.
and like I didn't really defend him as well as I should have in that chat, and so like here's a guy that
Oh, you
the
came
worst.
across defensive. Let me tell you, it was obvious you came to bat.
Yeah, well, I mean, like the guy deserves it, right?
Yeah.
We're
not walking in. Well, none of us walk in anyone's shoes, right? So
we're
we
not
definitely
walking
haven't
anyone's
walked in
shoes.
his.
You have not made bad choices in women like I have. I didn't get it right away. It's taken me a couple swings at the plate to get the home run that I got now. Like I've been blinded by beauty before, and it'd be a horrible thing. But here's a guy that he doesn't need to work, right? He's got these great opportunities. Basically money being thrown at him all the time. Like he doesn't have to
Right.
do anything. Here's a guy. He's a member. I don't know if I should say the department, but he went
in the fire department, right?
Yeah, and he got zero parole, right? He got no privilege. He got no preference. He's a probationary officer, not allowed to sit in the seats. The only guy to scrub the toilets. The only, anyone that's like been in any kind of first responder like situation, especially firefighting, understands that like the new guys, and girls, the probationary, firefighters, like their lives suck, and like, call it hazing, call it tradition, call it whatever you want. Like you do everything that nobody else wants you to do. You get the least amount of sleep. You like wash more dishes than anybody. You clean more toilets. You clean the firehouse. You wash the trucks. You do everything more than everybody else. And, he doesn't have to do that.
Right.
But he did. And he does. And and he's checking off like other blocks. He worked his family thing out. Finally found somebody that he's equally yoked with, and and he's being a great dad, and he's doing these things, and training for an Ironman and inspiring other people to be healthier, be better. Guy's sober. Like
because he went through a rough patch there, right? As many do.
Like 20 years ago, while I thought I knew everything, I was an idiot. Like now we have 20 more years, twice our lifespan, basically, right? You and I, of more experience and more knowledge and more emotional maturity. And so, it's wild to like think back there like it was just yesterday, because some days it feels like it was yesterday.
Sitting on the outside steps of the U.S. Naval Institute, watching Mark Wills play a cappella on a guitar. Right? I mean, I can memory after memory where we were, right?
Yeah, Mark Wills, the dude. You and I have we've actually partied with some pretty cool people. Or let me rephrase: some really cool people have actually come and partied with us.
That's probably the most accurate one, yeah.
those were our parties.
Right.
We did their party. We came to ours.
Penthouse Club. That's all I'm gonna say. Penthouse Club in Vegas. I'll leave it right there. If you were there,
mom,
you know.
JP's mom.
But I want to real quick. I want to go back to something you mentioned, right? And that was what Sal had said, right? That was his dark. Because look, people don't. We're not going to bring up the clip that we talked about with Dakota, but you can find it. But Dakota was just pretty much, I think, saying, if I were to paraphrase roughly, he doesn't wear his Medal of Honor. He kind of just does his thing and doesn't want to wear it and that kind of stuff. And yes, on first take, you go, dude, why would you just, because obviously everyone in the military looks up at that as the ultimate, it's the highest one in the ranking of awards and recognitions and medals. And it's, anyone that's got it, right, they're a recipient of it. No one considers it awarded, because you don't get it awarded by having the best looking room or the shiniest boots, right? You have to. It is a worst day in hell. Bells has said that was a bad day, which happened to be his birthday, but it wasn't the worst day. The worst day was 2 days later. They lost more people and it was a more violent fight. But it just so happened, like everything, a snapshot in time. Someone saw or caught in this case, a reporter recorded an incident, and they had the evidence, and they were able to, someone said it's worth it. But it was a bad day for Bells. He's lost a lot of folks. He lost more people a couple of days later. He mentions every one of them in that speech you talked about at the Pentagon. He names each one by name. What Sal had happened, what Swanson has happened, what the guys, any of the ones from Vietnam and stuff, those were all horrible days. And just like that maturity and just like the stages of grief, you've got to come through it, right? You got to come through it. Now, Dakota, don't know where he's at today. I don't really know him either. I know Petri, I know a couple other guys, but he may get to a point one day which his perspective is different. And that's okay, because he's got to come to grips. Because I got to imagine, Toby, we all know what survivor's guilt is. That's got to be a whole different level of survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
You have lost guys.
Just in general, like I think you said something like really, really good there with the comparison to the grief, the stages of grief, because it is a grieving process, right? And it's like the new normal, and how to manage it. But all right, that was enough about that. I just wanted to, because
34 minutes later, we covered that one.
A few moments later.
Yes.
So I want to bring up something that is coming out of the Austin, Texas area.
Yes.
The Great Republic. A couple years ago, as everyone remembers, there was some riots. There was civil unrest across the country. In some locations, there was much more civil unrest than in others. And I will say that in Texas, the civil unrest was pretty minimal. It was not like Chicago. It was not like Kenosha. It was not like Baltimore. It was not like LA. It was not like a lot of these major
liberal, highly Democrat-run inner cities,
but like really densely populated.
Not to make it political, but I mean they really are, right? Those are large cities.
Factually, I believe most of the places that had those high levels of crime and looting and violence, and
Minneapolis, Seattle, Chicago,
Minneapolis. I knew I was forgetting an important one there. So a soldier from Fort Hood, now Cavalos. I'll never.
Cavazos? Yeah, I guess I don't know. Rob will tell us the phonetic spelling.
This guy was making a little extra money doing Uber, which if a lot of people don't understand that while on active duty, you can have secondary employment if your commander agrees to it. It's not a detriment to the mission. It's not a detriment to the unit. Obviously, there's places you're not allowed to work. There's certain industries you're not allowed to participate in. But for the most part, it's at a commander's discretion. And this soldier's commander, I guess, blessed off on him, being an Uber driver, and so that he wasn't doing it around his chain of command, or he, and for better financial reasons, he was doing it about 40 miles away from base in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Guy drops off his passenger, his fare, whatever you want to call it, makes a right turn into a moving crowd of demonstrators. This was not a planned demonstration. There weren't warning. There wasn't a bunch of stuff. He makes this right-hand turn.
Probably was no permits were pulled for it, I'm sure.
No permits were pulled for any of that shenanigans. Yeah. And he tries to circumvent this crowd. That crowd descend upon his vehicle. And inside that crowd were two separate protesters openly carrying assault-style rifles. One was an AK-47 Kalashnikov version rifle, and another one was an AR-15 style Armor-Light 15 style platform. The service member, the soldier, the Uber driver, inside his vehicle, when those long barrels are pointed into his vehicle at him, he didn't wait. He reacted, did a great job, took down the immediate threat.
Effective fire on target.
Effective fire on target. Only engaged one of the two targets, and utilized
minimal force necessary. Did not just
utilize his vehicle to exfil, and get out of the kill zone. And I'm going to go ahead and say it, right? This is like an ambush, right? Yep. And so here he does the perfect thing, and you battle drill, react to ambush, and he just, takes the immediate threat out and gets going, gets out of there, calls 911, pulls over, gives them all his information, and surrenders himself to law enforcement. Immediately leaving the scene, calls 911 on himself, right? Not trying to hide. Now, bystanders caught this altercation on film, right? So this isn't a he said, she said, they said, right. He said. No, it's on film, and you see the long barrels being pointed at his vehicle. You see him defend himself. You see him leave. And he goes to the news. Texas has very rigid self-defense. Stand your ground.
What they call stand your ground. Right.
Stand your ground, as well as castle law. Right.
Castle doctrine. Right.
And within the castle doctrine of castle law, within that doctrine, your vehicle is covered. Right. So you can defend your home and property, which is extended to your vehicle. Yep. A reason why there's not a lot of carjackings in Texas. It's funny how that works. When you empower the citizen to not let the criminal victimize you, you have less victimization.
So I want to make sure, because we have about 20 minutes left. I want to make sure we get to the part because you brought up the stand your ground law. And when I watched this case, because he was convicted, is how good of a defense attorney did he have? Because it seems like a solid attorney would be able to throw that in front and nullify. I mean, that stands on its own. That's the law. I don't know how he was convicted after those 2 days of deliberation.
So he originally wasn't even charged. So here is this is, I think, an important part of this. So the guy didn't break any laws. 0 laws broken. The people that the guy that he defended himself against absolutely broke laws, right? And the other guy shot into his vehicle.
The AR-15 guy shot?
The AK guy or whatever, yeah. So one of them shoots into the vehicle, right? Which, he shot into a vehicle surrounded by his compadres, his which, like apparently no weapon safety class ever taught for that. Pretty sure shooting a weapon into a crowd of people is not intelligent, weapon safety. But he was not charged for a long period of time. And due to public and political pressure, they went back and then charged him. He goes to trial, and like he might not have had a good defense attorney, or he might have had a phenomenal defense attorney. But the bottom line is, like he was convicted for murdering like this guy
who was
when
pointing
he
an
was,
AK-47 at him,
again,
and sentenced to 25 years.
yeah. To which, like, openly reported as one of the greatest travesties in justice in Texas history.
Yeah.
Openly reported. And it was clearly like a very liberal, progressive DA in Austin. This guy was clearly, like the jury pool was super tainted. It was not fair. Like it was not a jury of his peers. And the jury pool, when I say it was tainted, I'm saying
assuming he lost his military career too.
yeah, this was national news.
Right.
And so they went after the police officers. They went after the police leadership. They defunded the Austin police. They did all these things as a result of these riots, and this was all political. And the law be damned.
But he did. Did he lose his career in the military?
Yeah,
right?
I mean, he got convicted.
Yeah, so I guess they booted him out or discharged him or something.
He got separated. Got convicted. He's got to go to jail.
Right. I think E6, right? I think he was an E6. It had a family and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And again, innocent. A guy that just went to work trying to make a little extra money for his family, right?
Right.
Now,
so fast forward to where we are today.
The past week, the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, the former attorney general of Texas, one of the most brilliant legal minds, looked at the case and identified it for what it was, a railroad job, a travesty of justice, like not in keeping with the tenet of the law. And, said, we're not going to wait on this to go to appeal. We're not going to wait on this. I'm just going to pardon him. Full pardon.
Well, what I read, just to be, I'm not obviously up on everything on Texas law, but they had to have the board of what is it? The board of pardons and paroles.
Yeah.
Unanimously voted that he should get a full pardon. And what I was reading was that the governor can't do anything until that happens, and he did that like within minutes after they did that.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Everybody that has looked at, every legal person that has looked at this understands like this was a railroad job.
Except for the Democratic elected prosecuting attorney for the city of Austin.
Yeah. And way to make your case.
Or Travis County. I'm sorry, district attorney.
It was for Travis County, and way to make your case. Way to try and solidify your reputation as a man of the people by wrongfully convicting an innocent man.
Now, this probably would have went over if this happened in New York or Maryland or Chicago. It probably would have held. In fact, they wouldn't have waited, right? They would have convicted him probably.
Yeah, probably already got the lethal injection.
Yeah, I mean, they would have if he would have had Uber riders, they would have before they even got called in a new ride. They would have had him linked up and arrested. And So you don't see this. So for this to happen in Texas is probably the best thing that could have happened to him, because there's many, not just Texas, there's many places that would have probably not prosecuted or whatever, because it was also political. But if this would have happened in an area that was slanted, he wouldn't even have got the governor to step in. Hochul would not have done this for him in New York.
And so, like, on one hand, like, we're dealing with Texas, but on the other hand, we're also dealing with the nation. And the nation watched as Kyle Rittenhouse got acquitted without stand your ground and without castle law.
Yeah,
right.
He was down in it,
and here's a guy down in it with his own gun. So how is it
a teenager
that this guy went there with the intent of being involved in this versus a guy that was an innocent bystander who was legally licensed to carry, a trained firearms professional,
not a high schooler?
No. And so, like,
but I do want to point out, both shot kill ratio was very high, was very good on both of those.
Yeah, Rittenhouse didn't drop many rounds. The kid's got a bright future. As a shooter, like, kid didn't drop many rounds. But you now have, like, the federal pressure, of the general public,
the culture, then the political narrative
coming down on, like, this guy's like, well, we didn't get Rittenhouse, we got to get somebody, and they got him. They got him, and it's wonderful to see, because, like, this is the system, and we're dealing with the little situation down here in Mexico right now, with the government and someone that's important to, like, the use of my business. And
so be careful what you say.
No, it's refreshing when the system works.
Yeah. Regardless of politics.
And that's what I was trying to tell, like, in our situation down here, people are frustrated because they don't understand how the government was able to do something that the government isn't allowed to do. And
are you talking about here in the States or in Mexico?
No, like in Mexico.
Because that's what's happening here. The same thing is happening here.
Right. And then when the system corrects itself, because we have, like, these checks and balances, and and I try to speak into that. I'm like, this is what makes the system work, is you have these checks and balances, and you don't have an authoritarian rule. You don't have somebody that has ultimate power and says, okay, well, I don't care what the law says. I don't care what legislation says. I don't care. I'm going to do what I want to do. Right. We do have a president right now, and I don't care. I'll say it. He does this, or the people that work for him do this all the time, right? Like, the ATF's out there just jamming people up. The IRS is out there jamming people up, like Homeland Security,
Department of Justice, and
Customs, and all Border Patrol. They're jamming people up all the time, right? The FBI,
but not some people. They allow people assaulting cops to walk. Right. Yeah. They allow people to pour across the border who are breaking crimes. A lot of them convicted of crimes in their home country to come through and all that stuff. But, they're going to sit there and hammer a guy for something that's not even a crime and make it a showboat of a thing when the rest of a city is melting down. People are getting pushed on the train tracks. People are being assaulted, punched on the street in the busiest city in America, in this dead center in the middle of the day. Right. You have all this stuff happening. You have San Francisco where people are just crapping literally all over the place and assaulting people and that kind of stuff. But they're going after just who they want to. That's a complete breakdown of the system. That's the system not working.
It's San Francisco, like, it is a constitutionally violating city. And
if you look at Lady Justice, if you look at Lady Justice right now, she's not that she's not blind. She looks like Donna Brazile, as in she's a straight up Dem going for the Dem side. I mean, that's Lady Justice. It's only going after people they don't agree with.
But it is wonderfully refreshing and gives hope when you see the system work. And that's
Yes.
why I wanted to bring it up, because it's like clearly this was a travesty of justice. And any human, regardless of which side of the aisle you're on, that feels that this was not a miscarriage of justice, this was not a travesty, like you are not a member of a free people.
Right.
Like
If I could segue this into something else that is just as refreshing, and I never would have guessed I would be saying this. As refreshing as it is to see the system works, I think it's more refreshing because I say this because if this happens more often, then the system would work and it would stay corrected. And that is a politician who does not get in line and kowtow and march in line with whatever his party says do, and he truly speaks up for what he or she thinks are what's best for the country and best for the constituents. And I never would have thought that would have been a dude out of Pennsylvania named Fetterman, right? This is never,
Yeah.
right? I have
No,
lambasted that guy in private
me
and in
too.
public, right?
Yeah.
About how inop and how broken and how he should not be there and just what an idiot he was, whatever. But I gotta say, maybe this is just karma. Maybe it's God teaching me some humility and a lesson. As much as it looked like he was not medically or intellectually qualified to be an elected representative, much less a senator, what they call, the high house, you know, um, he is out there not going along with the rest of his party. He's calling out immigration issues. He's calling out fellow senators who are corrupt, like Menendez. He's putting a strong push for support of Israel. All this kind of stuff, going against everything his entire party is going for, because he said it's the right thing to do. And I just got to say, man, that's refreshing. Those are the politicians we used to have in this country, right? And it's slowly eroded away, where they did not go with the D or the R. They went with the people, and they did what was the right, and the common sense was coming through. That dude's got more effing common sense than all the rest of them combined, or is at least willing to state that and put his voice behind it.
No, don't judge a book by its cover, right? I think
even if it's torn and banged up a little bit.
I think I went off on his sweatpants on here, right? His
hoodies.
His hoodies and his sweatpants. I don't feel like he should be, he shouldn't get any concessions. I don't think anyone should get concessions.
Right.
But I think the standard's the standard. But everyone was emotional about his victory because he had just suffered a stroke and he couldn't, he was literally gurgling and bubbles coming out of his mouth. And he lost to a beloved character, right? He lost to a Dr. Oz television personality, beloved American medical professional. And so, there was a lot of emotions around that. But, like many people that suffer strokes, they recover and get back on their feet, figuratively and literally. And he's not blowing bubbles out the side of his mouth anymore with his own spit. The guy's out there making coherent statements. I don't always agree with them, but he's out there doing it. And he's, doing a better job than our president. And, the irony of it is they both got elected in the same election. And we're just how is it this one party can put these people forward and that's the future of the country. It's really cool, like you said, to see just any politician of any party represent their people, because that's what it's really about. And
right. And I would expect politicians to vote for some things that their party wants and things against it doesn't make sense. That's the politicians I want to see. They should support the core principles of whatever party they're in, but it doesn't mean that they are freaking they are hostages to whatever their party leadership says to do.
Yeah, look at Lieberman, man. You know,
Another one.
there's some guys out there that, you know, like can, you know, RFK Jr., is he now independent, right? He left the Democratic
He is,
Party.
but he is, yeah, but only because they turned against him because of the shot thing. Otherwise, they would have loved him if he would have been for that.
Yeah, but I mean, like there's a lot of guys out there, you know, and gals, you know, like rolling into like, you know,
You got
you know what I
Tulsi,
guess,
you
yeah.
got
Well, I mean, I don't know if you can ever find someone that's been as wronged by a party as Tulsi. I mean, like,
Bernie.
you
I mean, Bernie would have won in 2016
know,
if
Bernie,
he would have won in 20. He would have won
Bernie,
in 26. Yeah, he would have won in
Bernie,
2016 if DNC had.
they just didn't give him the victory.
Yeah, he won, but they just handed it to Hillary. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
like so it's really neat, you know, like we're almost at the end of it. In Mexico, their federal election is June 2nd. And you know, it's really interesting watching politics here because for a country that's as old as it is, it's fledgling. It's, you know, just to put it into quick
like a
perspective.
preteen. It's like a preteen.
Yeah, this president, the existing president, this administration, let me just say that. Instead of giving him total credit, I'll say,
Just so you know, we got about 2 minutes left.
yeah, this administration is the first to require its citizens to pay taxes in hundreds of years.
Oh, really?
You know, so like people are like pissed because they got to pay taxes, but they also want all the things that taxes pay for. And,
Like
you know, like,
security and services
yeah.
and
And so like, you know, they have to make a choice about, okay, am I going to deal with a smaller pocketbook or am I going to deal with a better society? You know, like more services, more infrastructure. And, you know, so it's interesting because now like you're seeing the lights go off of like what governance should be versus what their experience, and their experience is generations of corruption.
right,
And so like there's this natural like distrust for the government because it's always been corrupt. And
right.
you know, it's not actually corrupt, it's just broke. And it's broke because people never paid into the system. All right.
Yeah. No,
That was
that's as long as they can keep it in check from being corrupt, and people will start to earn trust in it, right?
yeah.
I could be talking about Mexico. I could talk about the U.S. because that's it right where we're at, right? People need to
Yeah.
believe. People in this country need to be able to believe again that the CDC is going to do stuff based on science. They need to believe that the FBI is only going to and Department of Justice are really going to persecute and go after criminals and not innocent people. You know,
Yeah.
that this government's not going to spy on folks and is not going to use things to further advantage a party or someone's pocketbook, right? If someone's kid is dealing drugs and snorting coke off a hooker's tits and throwing guns in a dumpster, then that dude's going to be held responsible and charged as he should be,
You
right?
think?
That's
Or
what it'll take people.
or like
Yeah, which is
yeah.
which is starting up a new. June's going to be a great month, dude. We have the Tyson Paul fight. We've got we've got a tax charge case and the gun case against Hunter Biden's going to happen, and I think we have the first debate between Trump and Biden. June is going to be action packed. It is going to be the month for this show.
I'm going to go ahead, and you heard it here first. That debate's not happening.
If it does, I'm looking more forward to that than I am the Tyson fight. And I was all excited about the Tyson fight, but
I'm super excited about the Tyson fight. I do not believe that the Democratic Party in any way will allow Joe Biden to debate Donald Trump.
Do you think he was bluffing Trump? Do you think he didn't think he'd go for it? I mean,
it's 100% that debate is not going to happen.
There's going to be something, huh?
There's
or something.
Like there's a handful of like top level politicians that can like step into the fray with Donald Trump. And
not many. He took out a field of 17 last time.
And I'm going to list names that he took out. I mean, you really need someone as fast as like Ted Cruz. You need somebody like as sharp and as fast. You need a Tulsi Gabbard. You need someone that's fast and quick and like speaks with fact. Like not like, here, let me throw some conjecture and let me make an emotional response to this. No, you need someone that can because that's how that dude beats everybody. He beats you with facts. Like in
Hey,
sometimes
I got a fact
fingers.
for you. We got to wrap it up. We're going to get cut off. But anyways, thank you everyone for great. Toby, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining. I had a lot of people watching and listening tonight. Got a great show planned up for next week. A great guest already lined up. But Toby, great to see you, brother. We need to see you here more, especially in June. There's going to be a lot going on. So everybody have a good night. Follow us on our socials. Hit us all up there. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your people you don't like. Keep an eye here on Stu and the Nunn on our site. Thank you, everyone, and everybody have a good night. See you later, brother.